Welcome in college baseball central fans of Texas A&M. Ryder, Jake McKeever, one last show as a preview show before the season. I guess we made it to the end of the year, Ryder. I guess hats off to us.
Yeah.
So the Aggies are coming off two straight losing weekends. They did sandwich that with a midweek kind of domination against Rice. They still sit at number 5 in the country. They are now 4 of 4, I guess, for those S tier SEC teams. Before we kind of jump into that series against Ole Miss, how do you feel about A&M's chances to be a top 8 seed here going forward?
Honestly, I think we had it locked up on before the LSU series. To be quite honest, I think that losing two straight series, we should have dropped a little bit lower than 8. I think we still would have been in the top 10, but I think we would have been probably 9 or 10 if we hadn't already had that locked up. As long as we don't get swept by Arky, I think we kind of already had that locked in.
Yeah, you kind of see Georgia a little bit playing up as they could kind of steal in and be one of those last 8 seeds. A&M did beat Georgia head-to-head. I believe they have more SEC wins going forward. They have a better strength of schedule, RPI. Every measurable metric, it seems like A&M is going to be above Georgia. So it would really kind of shock me if they're not 404. But again, there's always room to move up. They'll do weird things with the ACC. They'll probably move ECU or UC Irvine or somebody kind of weird up there above A&M, I'm sure. But again, it was a very, very forgettable weekend for the Aggies. I know that the LSU one, you could say that, things really didn't go their way. They kind of sleptwalked through it. They had a chance to get the winning run home in both of their losses. Then Sunday, they came out and dominated. This wasn't the case for the Ole Miss. They lose Friday 4-3. Bullpen kind of blows it there late. Evan Ashenbach had back-to-back kind of uncharacteristic outings for him, so hopefully he kind of gets those all out of the way. Saturday, 10-2 domination by Ole Miss. And then Sunday, when they're in that night game, they win 4-0. They had a few chances there to kind of break it open, but again, A&M adds to now there's, I think it's the NCAA lead for shutouts in the whole year. They add to that. We'll start with that Friday night game. Ryan Prager was, again, tremendous as well, but, the bats are starting to kind of worry me a little bit. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, honestly, it was. I felt Friday watching that game. It was like I don't think we can hit a watermelon if a watermelon was pitched to us right now. The way that we've had, and kind of looking back to where we were at the LSU series, we were just swinging in a lot of uncharacteristic pitches. It was something that I was not used to seeing, and we haven't really seen up until these last two series. Is we were swinging a lot of pitches that we don't normally swing at. We were swinging a lot of pitches outside the zone. And it wasn't. We were finding difficulty kind of making contact, and really, I mean, Friday and Saturday both, we were horrible with runners in scoring position. I mean, it was so bad, and I was really kind of disappointed because again, we got a really solid outing from Prager, and it kind of felt like it was not wasted, but I was really concerned watching how they were that Friday night game. I mean, there was just there.
Yeah,
Didn't really feel like there was any identity.
they struck out 13 times. Skyver Grahovic added 2 Ks. We always say that there's going to be a time when you struggle as a freshman. This is the time that he's kind of struggling. They're really getting him to chase a lot of off-speed pitches out of the zone, which earlier in the year when they were staying up, he was hitting them a country mile. That's going to be something to kind of track going forward is, can he make adjustments on those off-speed pitches like that? But again, Ryan Prager went 5 2/3, 85 pitches, 5 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, 10 Ks. It does kind of worry me a little bit that he strikes out so many people because you kind of see his pitch count start to rise up. And I think that that's going to be the one thing that if A&M can kind of stay right, have him go 6, 7 innings, it's going to be a very, very big key. Because again, Evan Ashenbach can close out the last 3 innings. Shane's been able to do it. Weston Moss, Josh Stewart, and Peary, and kind of those spot starts. I think everything kind of sets up with Ryan Prager going in those 7 innings. Because again, after Ryan Prager, there are a ton of question marks in that starting rotation. Saturday, again, like we said, it was 10-2. Justin Lampkin only went 1 2/3, 5 hits, 5 earned runs. This is now the either 2 of 3 or 3 of 4, something like that, where he's not left the 3rd inning even. He threw 39 pitches, so not a lot from fatigue there. Chris Cortez kind of had his, one flop of the year. It seems like they've all kind of been struggling here at this time. He went 1 2/3, 4 runs, 2 walks. I feel really good kind of about him going forward. I know that he wasn't the best, but again, he wasn't really walking a ton of people, which is something that I think we were always kind of tracking this season. How did you feel about that Saturday game? Because there really weren't a lot of positives to take away from it.
No, honestly, the entire time I was watching the game, I was just kind of hoping we were going to get run ruled because they came in Saturday, and yeah, it was a Saturday game when Zane Bovmide, when he came in with the bases loaded. I can't remember if that was Saturday or Sunday. But he came in with the bases loaded, didn't give up an out or didn't give up a run, and then got all three outs. But
That was
we
Saturday.
yeah, so that was the time we were hoping. Like I was just sitting praying we were going to get run ruled. That way the game was going to end. Because there, like you said, there were not very many positives. Again, I think it was just a really uncharacteristic game. But to the credit of Ole Miss, I mean, Ole Miss they jumped on every single mistake that we gave them. It was Lampkin. I mean, and one thing I think that I've noticed in Lampkin is he doesn't. When he gives up a homer or he makes a mistake, he doesn't bounce back that quickly. I think he has that kind of mental block. I mean, still only a sophomore, but I think it's kind of that mental block that once he gives up and makes a mistake, he'll be super solid, and then he'll make a mistake, and then it's kind of just a downhill trickle from there. Like I said, though, I don't think there were very many positives to that Saturday game.
Yeah, I mean Weston Moss was good. Zane Dev, like you said, was pretty good. But again, they were up 9-0 in the fourth. I mean, it is kind of interesting to think about Lampkin just because obviously if he's pitching in the SEC as a true freshman, he probably hasn't had a ton of adversity. That's probably not something that he's really experienced doing, pitching when he gives up home runs or gives up a ton of runs. So again, that's something to kind of track that maybe Max Wiener can kind of work on him a little bit is just kind of that mental side of the game. Because again, he might not be a starter this weekend, but the Aggies are going to count on him to get outs down the stretch. Especially if they get kind of behind in a regional. Sauce has always talked about how they need 4 starting pitchers to kind of get it done. I think Lampkin, Cortez are going to be 2 of the big ones about it. And again, this is going to be one where they kind of bounce back. Strikeouts, they were down a little bit, still double digits, still 11. Grahovic had 3, Lavalette added another. Caden Sorrell had 3. But again, I think that they're kind of starting to take more competitive at bats, at least from Gavin Grahovic's standpoint. I think he's starting to kind of make adjustments, and I think he's really close to kind of breaking out there. Sunday, honestly, was I think one of the quickest games I'd ever seen. They had a 3-run six. It was 6-0. Only allowed 3 hits. Shane went 9 innings, 3 hits. Stewart and Aschenbach both pitched good in that one, not allowing a single hit. 1 walk for the Aggies. I think that that's kind of the one big thing for them is if they can kind of stay right on it. And I think that this is where we'll see Shane going forward, is in this kind of third starter role. I think that that's the one thing that I really want to track this weekend and then also into the SEC tournament is kind of how A&M uses innings from guys outside of Prager, outside of Aschenbach, outside of Cortez, kind of that second tier, that 5 or 6, because again, A&M is going to need a lot of those guys going forward.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think we saw really kind of what we've always seen from Shane. I know earlier in the year he had some rough outings. And I think he had I mean, we talked about this last week, just the difference in mentality you have to have coming in from the bullpen and coming in as a starter. And I mean, I really think he was just lights out. I mean, he was cooking, and it was so fun to watch. And you could tell he was having fun. I mean, it looked like the whole team Sunday was having a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, Braden had that big catch at the wall that really kind of turned everybody's spirits. Everybody got to exhale. It was not kind of the oh no Aggies, but again, that was where a lot of the hesitation from Jim Slosnagel came from. Is that he was really not necessarily worried about Shane in that bullpen. It's just when you move from bullpen to starter, like that really kind of messes with your routine, it messes with everything. And A+ for Shane going forward. That's not an easy thing to do to kind of move from a bullpen to a starter, especially this late in the season on the road when your team kind of desperately needs a win. Credit to him going forward. Moving on, no midweek. A&M went undefeated in all out-of-conference games, so they are the kings of that. They're the first SEC team to do that since 2015, which was also a Texas A&M squad. That was one where they were ranked number 1. They lost TCU and Jim Slosnagel in a super regional, so hopefully they can kind of get that monkey off their back. Virginia did it last year, made it to Omaha, so hopefully that's kind of more of the trend that they follow. But moving forward, they have announced the starters, kind of. We have Ryan Prager, Hagen Smith on Thursday. Asterisk, as I'm not sure that one's going to be played, as A&M is, again, natural grass. Friday, we have A&M throwing TBA versus what would normally be Brady Tigert has been replaced with Gage Wood. Gage Wood is making only his second start of the year. His last one, he went 3 innings. His longest outing was mop-up duty against Kentucky, where he threw 4. So that's going to be something to track if they kind of use him as an opener. Then Sunday, they're leaving Shane on Saturday. They're moving Shane up a day in rest. Arkansas is throwing TBA. I'm sure that'll be some kind of Brady Tigert for an inning to keep him loose. I think we'll probably see Molina in that spot, as this is kind of the first time he's really struggled um, and moved out of that role. I think we'll see McIntyre stretched out. I mean, Arkansas can run out just a ton of dudes from that bullpen. But I guess we'll start with Prager. Like we mentioned, what are you kind of expecting him to see? As this will probably be a very either abbreviated outing or an outing where they try and stretch him out as long as they can to see what he can do.
Yeah, I think honestly they're going to probably stretch him as much as possible. I think that this Arkansas team, when you look at them overall, I mean, I do think they're a pretty balanced team, but I think they're definitely more pitching heavy versus like their offense. I'm not sure like what exactly their rankings are, but I don't think they're very high up in the offensive, like in the
I think
offensive.
it's bottom, like outside the top 10 in a lot of offensive metrics.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of their offensive power, I mean, obviously they have some power, but I don't think that they're a big, scary kind of dragging. And I think Prager, because I think one of the best offenses that we went up against was Alabama, in terms of their kind of, my apologies, Georgia. And I think that Prager did a really, really nice job against Georgia. And I think that we're going to kind of see that similar mentality of just going out there, getting outs. You got to do what you got to do. And I think they're going to try and keep him out there as long as he possibly can.
Yeah, it is worth tracking too that Arkansas seems to be a very streaky hitter. Peyton Stovall's missed time this year. Kendall Diggs has been really up and down, where he's on, and when he's off, he's off. Those are both left-handed hitters. Sprague Lott's going to be their right-handed third baseman. We might see Hudson White. I know he's kind of started to take over that revolving door at catcher. We'll see Aloy. We'll see Souza. Those are both right-handed hitters. So again, Arkansas has a good balance of a lineup, and it's one where I felt like they've been so close that they take a lot of good at bats. They really don't strike out a ton with runners on base. They manufacture runs. So that'll be interesting to see, because at times we've kind of seen A&M give away outs outside of obviously Strawberry Fans up the middle. Grahovic's had a few like diving plays where the ball's kind of got out of his glove. Chestnut's another one where he's kind of started to make the 50-50 plays not go his way. So that's going to be something that Arkansas is going to make you press the issue on, is they're going to make you get them out for 27 outs. They use all 27 of their outs. They're a throwback kind of team. I think that's going to be the one thing to track, is how A&M handles that lineup. Because again, it's one where if you get them streaky, they can get shut out in all 3 games. But it's also one where they have the talent and the power to put up double digits. Moving on to that Friday one, A&M has it as a TBD. Who do you think we see in that role?
Honestly, I really truly think that we are probably going to see Lampkin again. I think that we're going to see Lampkin or Jones just on a very, very short leash. I think even shorter than the leash that he's been on already. I think that against Ole Miss, he was already on a very short leash. I mean, he did not last very long in the game, and I think that we're probably going to start with him just because I don't think that there's anybody in the bullpen that you can bring back out that's going to do as well as or have the same turnaround like Shane did.
It's not going to be Evan Ashenbach. Ashenbach is I feel like it's almost like the $5 theory. Like if he was going to start games, they would have already had him start games. So I think Evan Ashenbach is going to be that 4-starter, long extended one out. I think we'll see Tanner Jones. He didn't pitch at all this weekend. He really kind of has struggled in and out. Obviously, there's no better lineup to kind of practice against with Arkansas. As again, it is truly kind of one of the great equalizer lineups where if you pitch really good, you're pitching really good. And if you're not, they will bang you around and get you out of there really, really fast. It's a lot more talented offense than I think it leads on.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I definitely think we could see Tanner. I mean, I look back at his start against, it was Vandy. I think he pitched really well against Vandy, and I think it was Mississippi State. Or maybe it was just
I think
Vandy.
Auburn, he pitched really good as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's had some phenomenal outings. When he has his stuff on, I mean, he is awesome. I mean, there's a reason that a lot of different teams wanted him when he entered the transfer portal. And he has shown a lot. I mean, he's shown flashes of really like what he can do. And so I would not be upset by any means if we saw Tanner Jones out there. Because like you said, I do think it's kind of one of those games too that you can kind of throw someone who's been struggling a little bit and they may do well, but you keep them on a very short leash. That's why I said I wouldn't be surprised either if we saw Lampkin. I mean, I know he pitched last week, but he only threw, like I said, 39 pitches. So I really
Yeah.
wouldn't be shocked if we saw him. So
Yeah, and I think it was the LSU weekend where Schloss had said, Tanner hasn't found himself out of the bullpen just yet. He's still going to throw. 2 weeks ago, he threw 7 innings against one of the best lineups in the country. So I think that that's going to be one of those ones. And again, as we kind of start to play meteorologist here, it's looking like they're going to do a doubleheader either Friday or Saturday. I know that they would much rather do it on Friday as they can get more time off. That's going to be another thing to track. Is we've seen in the past where Sloss had kind of had Shane just in the like they're counting outs more about counting starts. I think that that's going to be another thing to track here going forward. And then again, in that Saturday, I think Shane's going to have that for as long as he can go. I think he's maxing out about 5 innings right about now. I know that last one, that 7 innings was not necessarily an anomaly, but we've seen him kind of build up, and I think that that truly is kind of the max of what Shane does. I don't know if he'll throw 7 innings. I think that they'll kind of use him more to see what other starters are. And then Sunday for Arkansas, who knows what they're going to go with? They're going to go with a bullpen game, and it's not going to be a disadvantage. It seems like every other team in the country, if you said, oh, they're going with a bullpen game, it's going to be at a disadvantage. Arkansas is not that case. They run out a ton of guys out of that bullpen. They probably have the best bullpen in the country. They have 4 or 5 guys that just have the stuff to be closers, and they're throwing in the 6th or 7th inning. There is a ton of arms to like about Arkansas. And again, if A&M's gonna need to make adjustments, Arkansas is a tournament team. They have the bullpen to win it all. So if you can go in, manufacture, get runs about that, you're gonna feel really good about Schloss going forward if you can score runs off this bullpen because it is one of the most talented bullpens in the country.
yeah, I think it's going to be intriguing to see. Like, if we can get our offense up, I mean, and like you and I were talking about, like we do hit much better at home, and we have that advantage of being at home, being in front of the 12th man. And I think if you get that offense going, like you're putting one of the best bullpens up against one of the best offenses. So, like, I mean, who wouldn't be excited about that, about the opportunity that we have? Because if we can get the offense back to where we were pre LSU, I mean, it's going to be a phenomenal game, and I think that you're going to see. I think that we will be able to score a lot of runs. I do really think that it's going to be.
It is a very underrated small ballpark. I know a lot of people like to say Lindsey Nelson's really small. A lot of the road coaches that I've talked about have said, yeah, this is one of the ones where you really kind of have to adjust for it. Because again, when that wind tunnel kind of gets thrown through and it goes out to the wreck, I mean, there are balls that they like nub that just flare over. So there's a ton of room. I think it's just a slim margin for error, which again, especially as Arkansas is going to have to play at that park too. So they're a team that can kind of rely on the long ball a little bit as well. I'm curious to see kind of what each team does with this because at the end of the day, it doesn't mean a whole lot for Arkansas seeding. It doesn't mean a whole lot for A&M seeding. How they kind of go about and practice this, I think that this is going to be one where they see what people do against tournament level talent and they kind of assess it in there. Because again, A&M it feels like it's already a host. Arkansas I can almost guarantee is going to host. And is it really that much different to be a 5 or a 7? Or would you rather feel better about your arms going forward? So I think that's going to be the one thing to track is not necessarily that they don't want to win. It's just that they would rather find out more about their team because, again, you can't practice it in regionals. You can't practice it in super regionals. I think it was not Van Horn, Corbin at Vanderbilt said, unless Jesus walks through that door, like this is the guys we got. I think that's how I feel about this one with Arkansas and A&M.
Yep, I totally agree, and I think too that something that Schloss said today, when before he was on TexAgs doing his his pre-interview with the media, and I was listening to that on my way to work, and he was talking about how do we go about defining the season? What constitutes a good season? Is it a good postseason? Good overall season? Is it winning these marquee series that we think, our quote unquote marquee? Because in the fans' eyes, like this series, there's a lot of implications. You sweep them, you win the West. In our eyes, there's a lot, but in reality, like you said, hosting wise, there's really not very many implications as to what's going to happen.
And the SEC's almost turned into like a consolation prize at this point. Like,
yep.
I know that it still matters to win the SEC, but like LSU didn't win the SEC last year. They didn't win the SEC tournament, and they won the national championship. Mississippi State didn't win the SEC or the SEC tournament. They won the national championship. Ole Miss was one out, and they weren't even close to winning. I'd have to go back and check and see Vandy because I know Vandy was really stacked in 2019. But in the NIL era, it's harder to win the SEC than it is a national championship.
Yep.
So it's one of those things where it does kind of feel like a way to print up T-shirts in the fall and give rings to guys. But at the end of the day, like Dave Van Horn doesn't really give a shit if they win the SEC or not. Sauce
Yeah.
could care less about it. It really is about setting yourself up and winning in the postseason. As we kind of run up on time here, who do you think has to have a breakout game in order for A&M to succeed?
I am going back to my tried and true. I think there's two people. I think you need to see Caden Sorrell having a little bit better at bats, not striking out as much. I think you need to see him getting some hits. I know he had the one home run to kick off the offense again. I think he had the home run on Saturday or Sunday. And
it was Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that you need to see him again, like at the bottom of the lineup. I think that you need to see him having some good at bats. And then my second person is we need the Beaumont and the Braden Montgomery that we saw at the beginning of the season, because I don't know if it's a mental thing, whatever it is, but we need to see the Beaumont that we all know is there and what he's capable of. And I think for us to really power through that, I think we're going to need to see a little bit more out of Braden.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my pick to click. I mean, he doesn't hit as good from the right side of the plate. Hagen Smith is unanimously going to be the first pitcher taken off the board. He's probably the best pitcher in the country. How Braden Montgomery handles his at bats with them, not necessarily getting a hit or getting a home run every single time, but just having competitive at bats. And that doesn't mean chasing trash with 2 strikes. I think if he can have competitive at bats and kind of set a tone in that first game, I think that's going to go a long way for his confidence. And again, I think that's going to trickle down to guys like Sorrell, guys like Grahovic, because again, they have at times kind of struggled against left-handed pitching. I know Jace doesn't hit lefty pitching as good. I think everybody outside of Appel is really kind of the only one that hits lefty pitching better than the right-handed pitching. I think that it all starts with Braden Montgomery at that top of the lineup.
Yep. Agreed.
I don't think we should give predictions just because I think that this is just impossible to kind of go ahead and predict because you don't know what the coach, what DVH or what Schloss are kind of valuing in this game. But I think that, if you want to give a prediction or anything like that, but I'm fine just kind of sitting back and enjoying 2 great teams.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some great baseball. I mean, I really think it's going to be a really, really fun baseball series. Probably one of the most fun and my favorite one that I'm going to be able to watch.
It's going to be, I think, the most talented series from an offensive and defensive standpoint. Just from a draft standpoint, there's a ton of guys that are going in the draft. So I'm really excited to see that. I'm excited to see kind of how much Arkansas has grown because I haven't seen them since the second week when they look like just trash. They lost to Oklahoma State. They almost lost to Michigan. I'm really excited to kind of get that good eye test because Arkansas is a lot better than they are. They always seem to kind of peak at this time.
Yep. Agreed.
Well, Ryder, I think that's all we have time for. Thanks again. We'll see you next week for the SEC tournament preview.
Sweet. Thank you.
See you.